basically on one side you have the southern jurisdiction of Masonry playing their part. And then you have other jurisdictions, San Francisco, the Grand Lodge. You have Seattle, in Atlanta, Hollywood, and certain centers where secret societies and Masons and other politically active groups that sometimes pretend that they're not meet. And they are basically orchestrating these events. They're the puppeteers. And sometimes they're the puppets. And they turn people against each other so that they can control both sides of things, who you run to. If you're from one side and you're not following the social order from that side, it's kind of like being in prison, and you're not doing what your prison gang wants you to do, then everyone's against you. So the way society is made by these people is that if your philosophy is true, basically, and you live by it, you're going to get in trouble. If you call them out on their hypocrisy and their bullshit, you're going to get in trouble. They worship gods of trickery and treachery. Venus, Saturn, Loki, Hades, Serapis, Jabulon. No matter what direction people take with their Masonry, when they're rich and an elitist, no matter how much they cry about Masonry is non-dogmatic, they always take these directions so they can work with the other rich and powerful Masons, the people who think like Plotinus, that evil is non-existent, that it is just an idea, that because we live in this realm, in order for us to exist on this level, there has to be a certain lack of perfection, and evil is just imperfection, from these people's point of view. And this all goes into the greater philosophies we have in America. Why is Trump able to say there are American values? And people say, well, what are these American values? We have all these different cultures. Well, it goes back to the Age of Enlightenment philosophies that went into making the Constitution. And what these people were really trying to achieve, the illusion of freedom. Because before there was black slaves, being used by Europeans on a large scale, there was white slaves in Greece and Rome. So there was always these poorer white groups of people and classes that sought to rise out of poverty. And they had different ideals on how to do that. And some of them thought that if they went to America, that they would have a better life. So not everyone who came to America was simply fleeing persecution, religious persecution. Some of them just looking for a new start. And so, what you ended up having is a bunch of cults and their atheist allies and homosexuals and other people who were at odds with the church-sponsored versions of morality that were being presented as a Christian perspectives on morality, which were close enough, mind you. So by the time they get here, we have a bunch of cults that are trying to find an audience with any migrants, immigrants that come to America. So be they Catholic, Irish, ways of Irishmen and Italians and Catholics, right? Or be they Protestants. They're trying to get these people to see it their way. And there's lodges and coffee houses and clubs all over the place for that very purpose, to indoctrinate the immigrants to America, the Europeans at that time, with the Age of Enlightenment philosophies that are derived really from ancient Greece. And the American elitists are like, this is what it means to be a white elitist with white privilege intact and all. It is to go back to your European roots and reject the Semitic doctrines of Christianity, which are not compatible with European culture, which consisted of pederasty and, pedophilia and murder and blood sport, and blood sacrifices at times in some cultures and so on. Okay, so they're like, reconnect to, who you really are as these white pagans. But then there's an element of the elitist mentality, which says we have to maintain our superiority over these people. So when we teach these people that they can be gods, we must do it in a way that will force them to the conclusion, regardless what path, what guru, which way they go with it, that we are above them using their own scale, that we have more power in this world, and that makes us a more powerful being, and that it's connected to our spiritual prowess, our spiritual powers. Okay, these are the conclusions that they want people to draw, and that's a form of slavery. It's tricking them into thinking that their conclusions are their own when they just planted these, ideas and lies and so on in your environment so that you would piece them together and come to those conclusions. So what basically has happened, since the age of white slavery, then to blacks, then the Native American genocide and black slavery, and to where we are now, is that the poor was never left, never left slavery. They were always the servant class. They were always the slaves. They just took on a new title and adapted to the times. We are modern day slaves. We're not called slaves because part of controlling the slaves is not calling them slaves. Using wordplay is part of it. Defining things in a way that allows business to go smoothly is a part of it. And so when you see these riots, they break out, it's more than just, these guys were protesting this and then violence broke out. No, it is all the people who are organizing them. Why are they spending all that money? Why all that effort? Why do these people take time out of their lives, to go protest? What is this really about? Is it just about one statue? I mean, go put up 500 more statues where you live, get over it. What is it really about? It is about the idea, it is about a culture war, and the idea that if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And it is the people organized in this culture war who have always controlled the culture wars. The elitists. If somebody had a good idea, they might incorporate it into their new age, guru bullshit. But they're always going to control the major warring parties. They will never let an uncontrolled opposition group get to the point where they're actually a factor in the political world.